Okay guys, so I'm back for another video, and I haven't really been posting much, but I just haven't been that motivated, but I'm back for another video, and in this video we're going to be reviewing, this is going to be the start of a series, which I'm going to be teaching you guys all about IndustrialCraft 2, and the first thing I'm going to start with is power generation, because you need power to run all your machines and stuff, and I'm going to be going over all the power generation. I'm not going to be going in depth on nuclear reactors. That'll be a separate video because they're quite complicated. But the rest I'm just going to be teaching you about. So let's get started. So the first one we have here is the generator, and what an exciting name that is. And basically it's a furnace that generates power. It's yours. Every mod has one of these. Every tech mod has one of these. The standard furnace fuel burning generator. Just your starting generator. You shouldn't use this that often. Just as you're starting out, you should use it because it's the first one. It's the easiest one to make. It's the easiest one to fuel. But yeah, it's not that good. And you can put coal in it, and for every coal, it will produce over 4K. I know that. It will produce quite a lot of EU, every piece of coal. But obviously coal is not renewable, so it's a lot harder to like fully maintain it. So it's not that good. I think it might actually produce exactly 4,000. So yeah, each piece of coal produces exactly 4,000 EU. And I'm just going to get this out of here. So yeah, that's how that works. And then we have the geothermal generator. And basically what this does is you can put lava in it, and it will generate power out of that lava. It generates a lot of power. It's much more efficient than the generator. And the generator cannot, if you look here, there's nowhere. You can see lava doesn't get you that much compared to this. So this is much more efficient if you're looking to burn lava. The main way people fuel this, including me, is either set up some, if you're in a mod that has a pump like BuildCraft's pump, you can set up a pump over a lava pool in Nether and it'll pump all of that out. And you can automatically feed it to this and produce power. Or you could just manually go and get lava, but manually doing anything is not that fun. And the next one is a little bit higher up. This is the wind generator. And this has to be used with a kinetic generator because this wind turbine, this is the best rotor. There's a lot of different rotors. Obviously, the higher up it is, the more efficient it's going to be, like the more power it's going to generate. And this will last, I believe, 3 IRL weeks or something crazy like that. So this will last a long time. And you can see it's pretty massive. It doesn't look like it's generating that much power, but it is generating a good amount. You can see it's generating 202 kinetic units. The rotor health is at 99% because, like I said, it's very slow to break. And this is producing 50.5 EU tick right now. And it will fluctuate a little bit, but it should mostly remain the same. Like right now it's producing 54.8. And the main nuisance with these is they're good. And if you have these rotors, you barely ever need to replace them. But if you don't have access to really like high quality cables, you can use a lot of energy wiring it all the way back down to the ground. And this is Y60, but I think it's different on a super flat world, but I'm not quite sure. But if it's not, then this would be about ground level where we are, so you could definitely get a lot more power out of this. But yeah, down here, there's this thing called a wind meter, I believe. And it's powered, and you could just right click and it'll tell you how much the wind strength is. Like you can see as we go up, it gets higher and higher, and then up here it ends up at about 21. But if we keep clicking, it should eventually fluctuate a little bit. Like, you see I didn't move at all, but it went down. So yeah, that is how it fluctuates. But anyways, next one is the radioisotope Thermoelectric Generator. It's a pretty long name, but essentially how it works is you get these pellets of RTG fuel, which are made like this, you need plutonium, and plutonium is quite hard to get. But the good thing about these is that they last forever. Like, this thing is going to be generating power forever. And how this works is you put one in. See, it's going quite slow, like quite slow. If you put two in, see, it's going a little bit faster. Put a third one in, it's going a lot faster. But basically what it's doing here is, if you just take these out, then you can see that there's 6 slots, and I have 6 right here. So this, basically what this is if you put this in, it'll do 2 EU a tick. And since there's 20 ticks in a second, that's 40 EU a second. So you can see that's pretty good, but it's not the best. But if you put another one in, it doubles it to 4 EU a tick. Then you can do 8, 16, 32, and then 64, and it goes quite fast. And these will last forever. So this is a really great source. So let me set it today. This is a really great source of power generation, but it's more late game because plutonium is hard to get. Because the only way to get it is by depleting uranium fuel rods, and I'll talk about that later. And next we have the semi-fluid generator, and basically you can put a few different fuels in here, but the one I like the best is biogas. And basically this will burn liquid fuels for energy. And how you get biogas is it's a long process, and it starts with any plant matter or anything, and then you put it in like 5 different machines, and then eventually you get biogas. And then this will burn a good amount. It's more efficient than lava by a lot, and you can see it's going down by about maybe a little more than 10 a second, and it's generating quite a lot. So this has you can usually measure how much they generate by how big the buffer is. Like, this one has a 32,000 buffer, so it is definitely, and buffer is, by the way, if you don't know what that means, it's basically just like the internal power storage or internal storage of any point. Because usually you wouldn't want to have this be the storage. You'd usually want to output it to like a storage block or something. But yeah. And then if this one has 32,000, this one has 20,000. So this one will generate faster. But the downside is that it has to be supplied with fuel constantly. Just get this out of here. The next one is a little bit more complicated, but not really. It's the Stirling Generator. And basically this isn't really a generator by any means. I know it's called a generator, but basically all that this does is converts heat into energy. Basically like the wind generator up there, except with heat. And this is just a creative generator. It's just a power block. You can power this, and then you put max coils in here. I definitely advise you to do that, unless you don't need that much heat. But it's advisable with this. And if we put one in, it's generating 10 heat units a tick. It's getting 5 EU a tick, which is not ideal. But let's say we put a second one in, it would generate 10 EU a tick. So basically each one of these does 5. If you put them all in, you're getting 50 EU a tick, which is pretty good. But remember that you are using power for this, so it's actually less than that. So I would not recommend using this specific setup with an electric heater and this, because it barely generates you any power at all. And this can be used for like other stuff, but this isn't really a great generator because there's a lot of better options out there. More complicated options, but there are better options. And now we have the radioisotope heat generator. And this one is a little weird because it's literally completely useless. Like, never, ever, ever use this. It's basically this, but instead of generating power, it will generate heat. But once you convert that heat with a Stirling generator, it'll be the exact same as this. So there's literally no reason to make this. So get that out of here. And this is a little bit more of a complicated setup. This is separate. Don't worry about that. But basically, what you're going to want to do is, this is just a generator. You're going to want to get water. If I just break that, you can see it's a Stirling Kinetic Generator. And basically, what this will do is if you put water in it and you give it heat, I haven't actually given it heat yet because there's no coils in here. But if I just grab these all out, then basically how this works is you put water in it, just anything will work. I use a pump because IndustrialCraft too, but if you're in a mod pack with thermal expansion, I'd suggest using the aqueous accumulator. I've covered it in another video, and the reason why that is better is because it doesn't use any power. This uses a small amount of power, but it still uses power. And you put water in it, you put heat in it, and it'll generate hot spring water, I believe it's called, and kinetic units. And the kinetic units are what generates power. So if we put all these in here, it should be generating hot spring water quite fast. And then this will be making 500 EU a tick. And that is way better than this just plain old Stirling generator. And you are getting hot spring water out of it at the same time. So that is a much better option. That is a lot of EU, like a lot of EU. Obviously, it's not completely ideal because you have to put this somewhere. But if I just grab some hot spring water, then it has a few unique properties. You can't use it for power. But if I was to put a little... Okay, apparently those don't use creative stuff. But you just saw it turn back into water. I'm just going to go get a few of these because apparently they don't like to be normal. You put those like there. It will turn into water, but before that happens, you can see you are getting regeneration. And you always get regeneration in this water, but the bad thing about it is it will turn back into regular water. And it'll go faster. It'll take 30 seconds by itself, but if it's next to cold blocks, like even like normal water is considered a cold block, it'll go much faster. So it's not really what you're doing this system for, but it's certainly nice to have. And you can see it's not really making any hot spring water. I'm not sure why that is. And then we have the manual kinetic generator, and basically you just right click on it and it makes power. So you can see right here, I'm just right clicking on it and you get 250 EU tick, and that is a lot, but it's completely hands-on. Like, you can never be stepping away from it, and that's just the bad thing about it, because you have to keep clicking on it. Like, the faster you click, if I was to jitter click right now, you would get, I think you would get slightly more. Maybe I'm not clicking fast enough, I don't know, but yeah, just holding, you get 250 EU tick, which is nice, but again, it's completely hands-on. Now we have the nuclear reactor, and this is really complicated, so I'm going to make a whole video on it. But basically, how this works is you put fuel rods in. These are how you generate the power, and there's multiple types, but for this video, I'm just going to be discussing uranium. And these basically will deplete over time, but while they're depleting, they will generate power. But they also generate heat, and you need heat vents to disperse that heat. So there's 3 types of fuel rods. There's normal, quad, and dual. And quad is 4 fuel rods, and basically just takes up 1 space. Dual is 2, and normal is just 1. And you can see we're only getting 5. We're only getting 5 EU tick, and that is not good. But you can see there's a lot more space to do stuff with. And this is just at 2.04 because it was just like that. But you can see it's not going up or down. So this setup is completely self-sustainable. It has a lot of buffer room because these are like the highest tier of heat vents, pretty much. And this is a really easy to cool down fuel rod. So you could definitely get more space out of this. I'm going to link the wiki for like the exact specifics if you want to make your own design, like how much heat units these generate, how much these disperse. And I'll also link some designs you can use with just the normal reactor, but I will have another video coming out soon that explains these in depth, and if you want to wait for that, you can. And that pretty much covers those. I'm just going to turn that off. And then we have some mediocre power right here. Just kidding, it's not mediocre. It's literal garbage. Like, basically, there's... I hate these water mills. Like, I always think that they're good, but they're not. So there's 2 modes to these water mills. There's unmanned, which is, like you see here, just in a pool of water doing nothing, and they will make power. But if we were to get cable and we were to get a storage block like a bat box, which is the lowest tier. If you don't know what these means, I will be covering these later. But basically, if you were to wire these up to this, you can see it's not actually giving any power, which is a little weird. I'm not sure why that is. I think we're leading it into the wrong path. Yeah. So you can see how slow this is. Like, it's about 1 EU a second. And that is just garbage. You can speed it up a little bit by putting more water on top. And having more of them would obviously do more, but look at how slow this is. And the manned mode is basically where you put water in it, and it will use that water. It generates a lot more. Still garbage, but you'd always have to be putting water in manually. You can't pump water in, which does make sense, because that's just not realistic, but still stupid. You can't like add water buckets to it. You have to do it by hand. So it's basically like this kinetic generator, but 1,000 times worse. So I would not recommend these. Like, do not use these. I don't even know why they're in the game, to be honest. If you have like 100 of them, they're decent, but there's so many easy ways. Then we have the windmill, and basically this is just the wind turbine, but less customizable. So if we were to wire this, you can see we're getting a decent amount, but it's not that good. That's because we're really low right now, though. I guarantee if we brought it up to that height, it would do quite a lot better. But again, I wouldn't really recommend using these. They're definitely better than these, because you don't need water and they even generate more power. But I would definitely recommend using those, because they just generate way more power than this. And I'm just going to break these because the blades are really distracting. Then we have the solar panel, and this is just kind of your basic solar panel. Like renewable energy, just a random solar panel. It does get a good amount of power, a lot more than those. And if you have a lot of them, it can be useful. But honestly, the only reason I really found myself using these is if I have a small bit, like a small contraption with a couple machines that don't use much power, and I need to power it. I don't want to waste all the time going back wiring my main power source up. I just use a couple of these and it'll do the job. But aside from that, not really much reason to be using these. So would not recommend, unless for this specific situations. Then we have the last bit of power. And I'm not going to be setting this up fully, because it's used with nuclear reactors mainly. But this is basically just a more efficient way to generate like heat. So basically what this will do is it'll make kinetic units out of steam. And you need to put one of these in it, but it will not get depleted, which is nice. And the way that you use those is just with a kinetic generator, obviously. You just put those next to each other and then you get power. But how do you get steam? So you need a steam boiler, and this might look like really complicated, and it's not actually that complicated. But basically, this will take fluid and stuff, and it'll burn it into steam, and it'll take water and distilled water. And you can see, I'll just explain all this right now. So this is the output of steam, which is pretty self-explanatory, how much steam is outputting the tick. This is how much heat it's getting per tick, and you do need to put heat into it, because it doesn't generate heat itself. And, or no, it does generate, sorry, it does, I think it does generate heat itself. And this is how much, like, it's a water input per tick, how much you want to be going into the system. You can put it at 1,000, would not recommend though, because 1 millibucket of water gets 100 millibuckets of steam. So 1,000 get you like, I think 100,000 of those. So yeah, it's not that really worth it to put 1,000 in. But I guess you could if you want to. And calcification is a little complicated. Basically, if you put regular water in, it is burning the water into steam, but there's obviously all those minerals left over from the water. And those will eventually build up in here, and it'll start calcifying. And the minerals will start clogging up the system. It won't be running it. It won't matter until it gets to 100%. And then once it gets to 100%, it'll completely stop functioning. But if you put distilled water in, and how you make that is, I believe there's a special machine, a solar distiller, and if you put water into that, it doesn't really say in the recipes, but if you put water into that, it will eventually distill it, and it provides its own power because it's a solar distiller. So I definitely recommend using distilled water if you want it to be fully automatic, because it's not that hard to get. It's a little annoying to get because it does take a little bit, but I definitely recommend using it. And we've covered everything except for this. So basically, this is default to 0. And the higher the pressure, the higher the temperature, but also the higher amounts of steam you're going to be getting. And I would definitely recommend having it at 221. And the reason for that is because there's two different types of steam. There's normal steam, which is anything below 221, so 220 to 0. And that is less efficient, but if you get superheated steam, which is 221 and above, then it will be a lot more efficient in generating power. And it's just better overall. A lot of this is just like graphics. It doesn't really do much. And this is just the temperature. And then you put that in there. So that's going to do it for this. If you have any requests for the next episode, please let me know down in the comments. If there's no comments, I'm just going to just go whatever. But if you do want to find something out, just comment down below and I'll try my best to make an episode on it. And if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like. And if you really enjoyed it, please subscribe if you're looking forward to any new uploads. And I will see you guys in the next video.